step back.
Why?
Seeing is believing.
Death has a plan. We've seen the planes, the bridges, the highways, the roller coasters. But Final Destination Bloodlines changes the rules. This time, death isn't just hunting survivors. It's collecting debts. In this story, the Campbell family isn't being targeted for what they did. They're being hunted for what their bloodline escaped decades ago, during the Skyview Tower disaster of 1968. And that's what makes Bloodlines different. Because when death starts thinking generationally, mistakes don't end with one person. They echo. But here's the thing about death. It's obsessed with order. And anything that follows rules can be studied. Today, Best of Best Movies breaks down the top 10 ways to beat death in Final Destination Bloodlines by analyzing every major kill, every setup, and every moment where survival was possible. These are the pivots. The missed exits. The moments where one move could have changed everything. Spoiler warning for Bloodlines. And remember, if you hear the clanging, stop moving. Number 10. The Iris Campbell Weathervane Incident. Iris Campbell survived for over 50 years by doing one thing right. She stayed isolated. Distance works. Time works. Avoidance works. But death doesn't forget. Her end doesn't begin with the weather vane. It begins with a sign event. A sudden storm. Rising wind. Loose shutters. Subtle movement. This is how death announces itself. The weather vane only becomes lethal because it was already compromised. A wire loosens. A hinge strains. Wind does the rest. Death doesn't throw objects. It waits for physics to do the work. Here's where death almost fails. The weather vane was visible. It was predictable. It was permanent. If Iris had removed it years earlier, death would have been forced into improvisation. Improvisation is dangerous for death, because it increases randomness. If an object appears in a premonition drawing, it must be destroyed permanently. Hiding from it is not enough. Iris survived 50 years. She lost because she waited.
Seeing is believing.
Number 9. The Howard Lawnmower Sequence. Howard's death is a chain reaction built entirely on neglect. Loose glass. Uneven ground. Poor footing. A running machine. This is not a freak accident. This is environmental permission. Death only acts once the environment is compliant. Here's the critical mistake. Howard moves forward. Death predicts forward momentum. It counts on panic forcing the body in a straight line. But lateral movement breaks the calculation. A sideways roll disrupts velocity. It forces a reset. When machinery is active, never retreat straight back. Move sideways. Always. Death didn't overpower Howard. Howard gave it the path. Number 8. The Julia garbage truck event. This death happens in daylight. In public. Surrounded by people. That's why it works. Crowds create distraction. Noise. Confidence. The soccer ball is not part of the design. It is collateral. Death uses it as misdirection. The real trigger is movement. Julia keeps moving after the warning signs appear. Wind intensifies. Metal clanging begins. The environment speaks before death strikes. Here's the overlooked survival pivot. Stillness. If Julia had stopped completely, gravity would have finished the sequence without her involvement. When death announces itself with sound, stop moving. Lower your center of gravity. Let the chain complete without you. Movement invites correction. Number 7. The Eric MRI Protocol. This is where death becomes efficient. No chaos. No wind. No chance. Just magnetism. Death chooses the MRI room because it is controlled. Predictable. Unforgiving. But this is also where death is vulnerable. Every MRI has an emergency quench system. A single button designed to collapse the magnetic field instantly. Death counts on ignorance. Eric fights the pull instead of shutting down the source. If an environment has an off switch, death is relying on you not knowing where it is. Hesitation is fatal. Knowledge is resistance. Number 6. The Bobby Spring Impact. Bobby is not the target. That's the point. Death uses secondary casualties to maintain momentum. Metal vibrates. Objects shift. Energy transfers. Bobby stands in open space, believing distance equals safety. It doesn't. Line of sight matters. When large forces are active, do not run. Find hard cover immediately. Concrete. Walls. Anything that breaks trajectory. Death doesn't need to aim. It only needs a clear path. Number 5. The Darlene Streetlight Collapse. This is one of death's favorite techniques. Vertical symmetry. People look down during panic. They watch their hands. Their feet. The ground. Death attacks from above. The pole falls. The base remains the safest zone, but instinct pushes people away from it. When tall objects fall, move toward the base, not away from it. The tip accelerates faster. The base pivots slower. Fear reverses logic. Death exploits that.
I'm gonna stay alive as long as
Number 4. The Stefani Resuscitation Failure. This is the most important rule in Bloodlines. New life resets the list. But only if the reset completes. Stefani's heart stops. She technically dies. But she is revived too quickly. Death rejects the reset. Clinical death must last long enough to satisfy the design. 5 minutes minimum. AED and medical support must wait until the reset completes. Half measures anger death. Number 3. The Charlie Log Train Callback. This is not nostalgia. This is correction. Death has learned. Cargo follows gravity and roll. Running parallel guarantees impact. When heavy cargo spills, escape perpendicular to the direction of travel. 90 degrees or nothing. Charlie runs straight. Death doesn't chase. It lets physics finish the job. Number 2. The Sin of the Father option. Taking a life to steal time works. But it's a trap. Death allows it because it shortens the loop. It creates guilt. Instability. Recklessness. Survivors who use this method become sloppy. This is a temporary win. Death always returns faster and more efficiently afterward. The cleaner solution is the bloodline reset. Let the youngest survive. Let the line restart naturally. Death hates paperwork. Number 1. The Bloodworth Chronicles. The ultimate weapon against death is not strength. It is information. Death keeps records. Lists. Manifests. Find the original disaster. Find the names. Find the error. If you can prove you were never meant to exist on the list, death hesitates. Hesitation is opportunity. Death is not emotional. It is administrative. Exploit the system.
Good luck.
Death doesn't stop. It adapts. But now, you understand the pattern. Every sign. Every setup. Every moment where one small decision turns into the final mistake. And that's what makes Final Destination terrifying, not the deaths themselves, but how avoidable they almost were. Now we want to hear from you. What movie should we break down next? Another Final Destination chapter? A different horror franchise? Or a survival movie where the rules are even deadlier? Drop your pick in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, explore more horror and survival lists on Best of Best Movies. Subscribe, like the video, and stay sharp. Because death is always watching. And the next mistake might be yours.
It's you, Wendy! You're dead!